Is it possible to overhype the new Inster? I'll help you decide that in this video. But first of all, do you think the buttercream looks like the Eddie Rocket secret sauce? There's not many cars I've filmed 3 times in the space of as many weeks on this channel. But this thing has just captured imagination, interest. It's got people talking, it's got people shouting at dealers going, "When is my car coming? I ordered it last year." It's just one of these cars. So can you overhype it? Right now, I don't think so. For those of you in the UK, I get it. It's not as cheap as some of your competitors, but here in Ireland, it's a fiver less than €19,000 for the entry level. This is not that, but this one is a fiver less than 22 grand. And that is unheard of in our country. Not to mention the fact that this higher spec version with a larger 49 kWh battery will do up to 360 kilometers on a charge on a good day, it has to be said. But still, it's got pretty good range for a small city car. On the charging note, 11 kilowatt AC, 73 kilowatt and 85 kilowatt on the fast DC charging, which this can do. We'll test out the speed of that a little bit later on. And it's front nose mounted, which means in a lot of cases it's just easier to connect this thing up to a fast charger if you need to. One of the big selling points of the Inster, even with a larger 49 kilowatt hour battery, depending on your tariff at home, it's a car that you could charge for genuinely €5-6 and get 300-ish kilometers out of that. The lower cost of home charging was hammered home for me this week when I got a new charger. The kind people at Omi have dropped me out an Omi Home Pro Plus charger and installed it. Now, it's not the first time I've had a charger at home. I've had a Zappi for quite a few years, but there was no connectivity on that. The app for this is so handy. You can go in, you can pair it with your actual car. Now, I haven't done that with the Inster because we have an Aria at home. But if you did have an Inster, you hook it up, and depending on dynamic pricing, if you want to go that way, or you put in your energy provider, it'll work out your tariff. It'll even tell you on the screen and the app how much your charge is roughly going to cost you. Now, I could do a more in-depth review on chargers and cover the Omi as I progress with it over time. Just don't know if there's an interest in getting down to the nitty-gritty of chargers. You can still do all the programming within the Cars app itself. You can type in the details of who your energy provider is, and they're also doing some special tariffs with the likes of SSE Airtricity and different brands as well. So worth a look, and certainly so far so good. The connectivity with the app is something I haven't experienced with a home charger before, so I'm really liking it. Remember, this is a car that is just over 4.8 meters long, can take 75 kilos on the roof, and has almost a 2.6 meter wheelbase inside the cabin. And that's where all the extra space comes from. You might think trying to live with such a small car with a small boot is problematic. It's really not though. I'll cover that in just a second. We have a brake light bar up here, quite an extended rear wiper, which pretty much does the job of the entire screen. The red rear daytime running lights or rear lights on the vehicle, and your indicators and your reverse lights down here, and your fog light. You could definitely say though that it's busy. You've got lights, many different colours and textures and finishes, quite a large rear glass window. There's a lot going on at the back of the Inster. The boot starts at 280 litres, but it can go to 351 depending on which version you have. The O2 and above spec in the UK, or the Elegance version in Ireland, has an adjustable rear bench, which means the boot has so much versatility. In fact, you can even drop the front passenger and driver seats fully flat. Why might you want to drop the driver's seat? Well, it means you can lie a mattress inside this small car and use it as a camping vehicle. And when you're done in the morning, these spring back into place with some adjustability on the actual bench also. And a couple of seconds later, you're good to go. And this is where you see the benefit of that. So almost 2.6 meter wheelbase. There is more space on the back of this car than even this video will probably demonstrate to you. There's more foot space, knee space, flexibility. The fact that the higher spec versions have this adjustable rear bench, which means you can make your boot bigger or smaller, and that's where the bigger literage comes into play. And because this is strictly a 4-seater car, you can do it individually with either seat. So maybe you still have a passenger in here and they need leg room. A smaller passenger is going here, or maybe there's no passenger at all. And let's be honest here, is there a time when your car is always full? So will you always be using the seat space in one of these? The answer to that is probably no. The door bins, they're tiny though. Some people might find the fact that the rear door handles are quite high. That might be a little bit annoying. Irish cars in this elegance trim get a heat pump and battery preconditioning as standard. Now, there is the cheaper version with 15-inch alloys, slower charging speed, about 300 kilometer range. For some people, that version will be more than enough. One other potential negative aspect of the Inster is this B-pillar. I've seen some taller drivers say when they have to put the seat quite far back, this is all they can see when they turn their head around. The front of the Inster, for me, is the area where you kind of go, wow, this car is how much again? There really is very little inside here that makes you think of the price. Whether it's the battery preconditioning that I've mentioned, the reversing camera. It's not 360, fair enough. We don't get a digital key in Ireland, fair enough for now. But that's got decent resolution. Much better than you'd expect in a car of this price. The fact that you've got full physical controls and heated seats and climate control. The same steering wheel that you get in an Ioniq 5, complete with different drive modes, including snow, if you need extra grip. And then there's this floating shelf for storage. There's a wireless charging plate, more storage down below. Holders for drinks, an armrest in the more expensive trim, which already, by the way, is starting to show little bits of signs of dirt. So I'm not sure I'd go for this bright cream interior unless you like minding your car and your kids are well behaved. Or maybe your kids have left and you're delighted. And everyone's happy. 10.25-inch screen on both sides. Clear, sharp, great resolution. A little bit annoying that you've got to plug in your device to get CarPlay or Android Auto. And having looked at lots of forums, it seems Irish cars, even if you do plug in that vehicle to load, it definitely doesn't work. So that's a little bit of a shame. Hyundai Ireland also haven't fully rolled out a higher trim spec version. Now obviously there's a larger Inster coming down the tracks, but this version could have a higher trim spec, which will get a few more of those options. For now, they wanted to concentrate on just having 2 different trims to get enough physical units into the country. 2 different power outputs. This is the higher brake horsepower version that you get in the larger battery version of the Inster. And it's definitely more than enough. I've driven this on motorways extensively. You don't feel that level of intimidation that I certainly felt from other drivers in the Dacia Spring. And that's down to the Muppets you drive around. Maybe where you're watching this video, you don't have Muppets on the roads, but unfortunately in Ireland we do. And some people see a smaller car and to them, for whatever reason, it's a bit of a target. That said, I drive a 911 as my own personal car, and I've had a Nissan Qashqai inches from my bumper on one of our main motorways. So make it make sense. If you're driving around town, you're going to see a lot closer to that WLTP, that official range of 360 or 320-ish in the smaller 42 kilowatt hour battery version. Just at a zebra crossing here now, letting some people cross the road, and it's just funny to see people, they really do look at this car and they do a double take, and kids are kind of pointing at it because it looks cute, it's got a cute face on it. If you're doing that kind of driving all the time, you probably will get fairly close to that. As I tested in my other video of driving an Inster on a motorway, and feel free to watch that video as well, every little helps, it was closer to 19-20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which would suggest you're in and around closer to the 200 kilometer figure. That said, I haven't filmed this car at all in summer. Maybe there's an idea for another Inster video, and I think in summertime you will get more than 200 kilometers even on a motorway. I find the Koreans are a lot more kind of true to their word as to what they claim their cars can do. The gasometer is not much of a gasometer anymore. Around town then, in urban environments, you should see anywhere from 14 to maybe 17 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. All depends on how much you get the battery warmed up the style of driving you do. The steering really doesn't tell you an awful lot about the car. It's not set up to be a hot hatch or anything like that. It's just meant for comfort, and for the most part, from living with it this week, it is comfortable. There's the odd ramp or pothole you hit on these bigger 17-inch alloys, and you do feel the thud. The 15s will definitely be more gentle in that setting, but this version will probably handle a little bit better because there's more rubber touching the ground. That said, I've seen some reviews that say, you know, you can't really have fun in this car. There is a bit of body roll, but I would dispute that. I mean, it's very nippy. It only weighs 1,300 kilos in its smallest battery form, which is kind of unheard of for most EVs. The Dacia Spring is actually less than 1,000 kilos, but as far as I'm aware, everything else is well above that. And because of its lightness, well, one, it's plain to see you're getting better efficiency. This is not the most aerodynamic design of car, so I only assume it's down to the weight. And also because of the weight, yes, it's only got just over 100 brake horsepower, but its power to weight means it can keep up with traffic no problem. Also, as tested on the motorway, the wind noise across the windscreen does get a little bit more pronounced the faster you're going at that 100, 120, but it still feels like a very stable car. So I wouldn't have any kind of concerns if you are going to do a little bit of motorway driving with this car. Once it's, you know, within the range, then you just charge it every night if you need to. I don't think you will need to, because the average motorist is probably not doing more than sort of 50-ish kilometers per day. The max charging speed, it's a little bit low, but again, you've got to put these things into context. The battery size is not huge. Where the charging speed will definitely benefit you is when you are trying to do cross-country driving. I know someone who tried to do east to west in Ireland in a Dacia Spring, and because that only does 30 kilowatt DC max, that to stop twice, and the journey from Dublin to Mayo took 5.5 hours, and that is not a situation you want to be in any car. So with that in mind, I'm going to go to a fast charger now and see what sort of speed the battery in this Inster can actually reach. Now, it's not that empty, that's the other thing. So in terms of capacity, it's probably not going to get anywhere near, but let's just see, because some cars are pretty good at this. Also, finally, before I wrap up the driving impression, there are 4 different levels of regen. So there's paddles here all the way down to the I pedal, which means there's just one pedal driving. So very relaxing. Lift off the throttle and the car immediately starts to come to a halt. If you don't like that feeling, you can reduce how severe it is with the paddles, but I've been using it and I have been liking it. Fully appreciate I'm not driving the lower brake horsepower version, but genuinely, I wouldn't say it on camera, it's my own reputation as well. This has more than enough power in the bigger battery version of the Inster. Nothing wrong with the output at all. So this is an interesting one. Some people have asked me to test out the charging speed on the Inster. That's cool. And I went to my nearest fast charger in SuperValue in Sutton, and unfortunately, even electric owners can sometimes ice spaces. So this Enyaq is 100% charged. Owner can't be found. Some people who are trying to charge a Nissan Leaf went in, got it announced on the tannoy. But because of the front port on the Inster, I've been able to come up behind the charger in a non-charging space, take the cable out of the Skoda and plug the Inster in. So, where there's a will, there's a way. Let's find out how fast it can charge. A couple of things I need to touch on. So the state of charge in the car, how full the battery is essentially, is at 50%. It should be lower, about 20%, to really test the full charging speed capabilities. Remember, 85 is the highest kilowatt charging speed on the larger battery. Another thing to point out is this is a 150 charger, but there's an ID3 charger on the other side, so it's 150 divided by 2. So the most you were ever going to get was 75. Considering it's at 50% state of charge and someone else is using the other side, it peaked at 55 kilowatt, which is not as fast as it should be able to charge. But again, I'd love to be testing this with less than 20%. Unfortunately, with my driving this week, I just haven't been able to use all the battery because it's incredibly inefficient. I also wish I could hang around long enough for the Enyaq owner to realise someone else is now using their charger after their car was charged to 100%, it has to be said, just to see the puzzled look on their face as to how their cable has been taken out of their car. And despite being able to spend 59 cents per kilowatt hour for charging, our car space blocking friend doesn't seem bothered with tax and insurance. This is, without doubt, a car I would tell a family member or a friend to just go ahead and buy. So to answer the question that I posed at the start of the video, is it possible to overhype it? Well, it depends on how much you get on with it. I'm sure there's someone who just won't love it quite as much as I do, or maybe just won't get on with the fact that it's still a little bit too expensive for their market. For right now though, in Ireland, with the price this is, it is the best value new car on the market today. It even has a decent horn. And most small cars and some big cars don't. And on that note, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.